Hey Math Wonders, in this lesson you will learn how to write a linear equation in slope-intercept form and to graph a line using slope-intercept form. So you've seen that you can graph a line if you know 2 points on the line. Another way to use the slope of a line and another way is to use the slope of the line and the point that contains the y-intercept. For instance, if we were to graph the line given the slope and the y-intercept, where the slope is -2/5 and the y-intercept is 4, this is how we could graph it. First, I would notice that the y-intercept is 4, so that means the line contains point 0,4. So I'm going to plot 0,4. That is a point on the line. Then I'm going to use what I know about rise over run and slope to graph other points on the line. So a slope of -2/5 means I'm going to go down 2 units, I'm going to rise 2 units down, and then I'm going to run 5 units to the right. So I'm going to start at 0,4 and plot another point using rise over run. Down and to the right. So with a single point, the y-intercept, and the slope, using rise and run, I could plot multiple points on a line and then draw a line through. Okay? Graphing a line using the slope and the y-intercept. Let's take another example. So here the slope is 2 and the y-intercept is -3. So if the y-intercept is -3, that means I'm going to plot a point at 0, -3. The line that's in question contains that point. And then I'm going to use the slope of 2, which is 2/1, which means I'm going to rise 2 units and then run 1 unit. I'm going to rise 2 units up and go 1 unit to the right from 0, -3. Rise 2 units over 2 units. And then once I have 2 points, I can simply draw a line through it. And of course, I can continue that sequence. I could go up 2/1, up 2/1 to get multiple points on the line. But of course, 2 points is enough. Okay, now you guys try this one. Graph the line given with a slope of -2/3 and y-intercept of +1. Pause the video now. Alright, welcome back. So we're going to graph the point 0,1 because it has a y-intercept of 1. Put that on the graph, and then we're going to use what we know about slope, which in this case is -2/3. Now, I could either have that negative sign go with the numerator, in which case I'd go down 2 units, or that negative sign could go with the denominator, in which case I'd go to the left 3 units. But I can't have it go both, so just make a decision. In this case, I'm going to have it go with the numerator, and so I'm going to go down 2 units, -2 units down, and then 3 units to the right from 0,1. And that allows me to plot another point. Down 2 over 3. I could go down 2 and over 3 again, and then connect my dots to make my graph. Did your graph look like this? Hope so. So if you know the slope of a line and the y-intercept, you can also write an equation that describes the line. For instance, if we have a line that has a slope of 2 and the y-intercept of 3, that means the slope equals 2 and 0,3 is on the line. Okay, that line goes through that intercept at 0,3. Alright, so now using the slope formula, y2 minus y1 and x2 minus x1, we can figure out another point on this line. So here's the slope formula, and then I know my slope is 2, that's given information, and I'm going to put the ordered pair 0,3 in for one of the ordered pairs on the line. So I can create this formula. 2 equals y minus 3 over x minus 0. This is just using the slope formula. Since I don't know x2, y2, we're just going to use x and y. So now from this, we can solve for y. Simplify the denominator, multiply both sides by x. That gives me 2x equals y minus 3. I'm going to add 3 to both sides, and that's going to give me 2x plus 3 equals y, or y equals 2x plus 3. We always want to solve for y. We like to put the equation for a line in y equals form. All right, I know that's a bit of a process, but let's review that again. So this formula, y equals mx plus b, the form that we just put the equation in, is called the slope-intercept form because we use the slope and we use the y-intercept to find the equation. So if a line has a slope m and a y-intercept b, then the line is described by the equation y equals mx plus b. Get to know the slope-intercept form. You will learn to love it, or not love it, but just have to live with it a great deal of your life, or at least your algebra life. So any linear equation can be written in slope-intercept form. Any line can be written in slope-intercept form by solving for y and simplifying. In this form, you can immediately see the slope and the y-intercept. Also, you can quickly graph a line when the equation is written in slope-intercept form. So it's good to be in this form, because if it's in y equals mx plus b form, I know the slope immediately, it's the coefficient in front of x, and I know the y-intercept. It's that constant b. So let's take a look. Okay, so write an equation that describes the line in slope-intercept form. We're going to put it in y equals mx plus b form. So if I tell you the slope is 1/4, you're simply going to sub in 1/4 for m, and the y-intercept is 4, you're going to sub in 4 for b. So an equation with these given dimensions has a y-intercept form of y equals 1/4 x plus b, plus 4 rather. My slope is 1/4 and my y-intercept is 4. Consequently, if I gave you the equation, you should be able to ascertain that information. You should be able to tell me the slope and the y-intercept immediately. But it has to be in that y equals form. Okay, here's another example. The slope is -9, so it's going to be y equals, I'm going to substitute -9 for m and -5/4 for the y-intercept. We're just plugging them in for the variables that they represent. I've got -9x plus -5/4, which I can simplify to -9x minus 5/4. This means the line goes through the y-axis at -5/4, and it has a slope of -9. So if I gave you an equation, you should be able to write that equation in slope-intercept form as well. I'm sorry, if I gave you a graph, you should be able to write that in slope-intercept form. I simply would find the y-intercept. In this case, it looks like the y-intercept intersects, crosses the y-axis at 0, 3. So 0, 3 is the y-intercept. That means b equals 3. The slope of this line I can just do by rise over run, which looks like I have to rise 1 and run 2. Or if I use the slope-intercept form, I find a slope of 1/2. So given the slope of 1/2 and a y-intercept of 3, we can write it in y equals mx plus b form. Y equals 1/2 x plus 3. That's the only two bits of information I need to write it in slope-intercept form, the slope and the y-intercept. You guys try this. Given the slope and the 3/4 is on a line, let's write it in slope-intercept form. All right, welcome back. It's maybe a little challenging here. We're going to find the y-intercept by using the equation, the slope equation. I'm going to substitute 2 for m, and I'm going to substitute 3 and 4 for x and y. So 4 equals 2 times 3 plus b. We don't know what b is. So what we've done is we've taken what we know, the slope and a point on the line, and we substitute them for the variables, and we're going to solve for the variable we don't know, which in this case is b. So that gives me 4 equals 6 plus b. If I take away 6 from both sides, that gives me b equals -2. So the y-intercept is -2. Now if I know my y-intercept is -2, I can write my equation in slope-intercept form. I'm going to sub in 2 for the slope, which was given, and -2 for the y-intercept, which we found. And that gives me an equation of y equals 2x minus 2. You guys try this one. Write the equation that describes the line with a slope of -12 and a y-intercept of -1/2. All right, welcome back. So if we just substitute the quantities for the given variables in the slope-intercept form, that gives me negative 12x minus 1/2, y equals negative 12x minus 1/2. Simplify if I could, but I can't, so that's my final answer. Here's another example with a slope of 1 and a y-intercept of 0. So we're going to sub those numbers into the equation and then simplify. So this one's actually going to look at very simple. It's just going to equals y equals x. For every value of x, it's going to equal y. And let's see, a line has a slope of 8 and negative 3, 1 is on the line. We're going to write an equation. So this is when we go back to the slope-intercept form and finding the y-intercept. So I'm going to plug in what I know, the slope, and an x and y. In this case, x is negative 3 and y is 1. Plug those into the formula, and then I can solve for b. I find that 1 equals negative 24 plus b, so I add 24 to both sides, thus b equals 25. So if the slope-intercept is 25 and the slope is 8, I can write my equation in slope-intercept form. And simplify. Y equals 8x plus 25. One more. Let's see. Write the equation in write the equation in slope-intercept form. It is already written that way. And then we're going to graph the equation. So immediately, just by looking at this equation, I know that the y-intercept is negative 1, and I know my slope is 3. So I can plug in 0, negative 1. I can graph that. That's a point on the line. And then I use rise over run, 3 units up, and then 1 unit to the right to plot additional points. Up 3 over 1. Up 3 over 1 would give me additional points. And then I can just connect the lines to make my line. One more. So this one is not yet written in y equals form, so we do have to do that first. So if I subtract 3x from both sides, that gives me 2y equals negative 3x plus 6. Then I need to divide both sides by 2 to get y equals. Okay? It's not in slope-intercept form unless it's in y equals form. At this point, I know my slope is negative 3/2, the coefficient in front of x, and I know my y-intercept is 3. So then I can graph the line, put a point at 0, 3, the y-intercept, and then I'm going to use rise over run. Again, choose one or the other. I'm going to choose the negative sign to go with the numerator. So I'm going to go down 3 units and to the right 2 units. Down 3 units to the right 2 units. Plot a point, connect the dots, and there's your line. All right, you guys try this last one. Write the equation in slope-intercept form, then graph the line described by the equation. I'm going to give you a little hint here. All right, guys, welcome back. So written in slope-intercept form, it becomes obvious the slope is 2/3 and the y-intercept is 0. Thus, you're going to plot a point at the origin, 0. That is a point on the line, and then we're going to use use the slope rise over run to graph an additional point, up 2 over 3, up 2 over 3. Plot a point, connect your dots, and there's your line. Easy, right? I'm going to skip ahead here. You guys can, for time's sake, you guys can go back and review this question as necessary. But in general, lots of examples here. So in this lesson, you learn how to write a linear equation in slope-intercept form and to graph a line using slope-intercept.